Shelley, again, why don't you tell us about fix and flip versus BRRRR?
Absolutely. Like I was saying, fix and flip is just like it sounds. You're flipping, you're purchasing a property, you're fixing it, and then you're selling it. So you're flipping it into your portfolio, fixing it, and flipping it right back out. Whereas BRRRR, which is a new acronym, it's actually been around for years. It's what a lot of senior investors have done over and over to build their portfolios. They've just put that acronym in for people to, I guess, capture attention. Is just buy, renovate, rent, refinance, rinse and repeat. So pretty much you're buying a property to put into your portfolio, you are renovating it to keep in your portfolio. So your renovations are going to be maybe a little bit different than if you were going to sell it out of your portfolio, because you're going to keep it to now rent out to a tenant. So then you're going to refinance it to pull out some of that money that you've put into the property, and it's going to have appreciated as well. And then the whole rinse and repeat is now you're taking that money that you've got back from that property and then finding another property to buy, renovate, rent, refinance,
and
repeat.
Another part of the refinance would be part of it to pull out capital, but also sometimes when you buy either fix and flips or BRRRR properties, you're buying with not conventional financing. So that's another reason why that refinance comes in.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, Shelley, why don't you tell us why you got into real estate? And I mean, you've done almost everything there is to do in real estate investing. And why is real estate your chosen investment vehicle? And also why flips?
Yes, absolutely. I always like to say it a short answer because I don't like being hungry or cold. So it really is the answer. So, but it kind of started years ago in that a few different avenues in that we'd had some investments out in kind of the stock market, and not really a stock market, but other investment products, which were kind of mutual funds and businesses. And it turned out to be all corrupt and fraudulent. So people went to jail, went through courts. And even though you win, it doesn't mean you get your money back. So I remember being very devastated about that. That was kind of painful to lose that kind of money. And I always thought I would never, ever want anybody to ever feel that devastation of having their money lost. And so I wanted to find a secure way to make an income, to grow wealth, create, like I said, money to create, food and drinks and eat, but also for retirement, right? And to provide for my kids, because I was a single mom as well. So how do I support my children? And real estate just really made sense. And we've all heard how most millionaires are made through real estate. So it just really made sense. And I had a huge passion for it. I actually took interior design as well in school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and I also managed huge properties even before I got into real estate investing. So when you asked me how long I'd been in it, I was like 20 years. I'm like, okay, that's the active part. But before that, I was property managing huge apartment complexes. So I'm like, does that count as investing? I don't know. So
well, and I love what you said about real estate being more secure, because you can have fake stocks and Ponzi schemes and all this stuff. It's harder to have a fake house.
Yes. Yeah. And if the market goes down, like Calgary, where the market has gone down, you just don't sell. You still have an asset. You still have it being paid off. You can still do improvements to it so you can increase the value of the property. So you still have options. Whereas with a stock, when it goes to zero, that's it. You're done.
Well, and we'll get into that more when we hit the bad part of good, bad, and the ugly as well, when markets fall. All right. So first of all, the good.
The good. Yes. I love that cat. That's really epic. Yeah, the good. Absolutely. It is easy to make profit in a very quick amount of time, anywhere from honestly just a few weeks or a month or more, just depending on how you do your timing, how organized you are, how streamlined your processes are. Once you get your processes in place and your team in place, then it's easy just to move from one project to another project to another project, or have them as part of your team to even lend out to other people so that you can keep them employed. And they love it because they know that they're being employed and you're going to pay their bills, and you create that relationship, which is huge in this industry. So then that goes also down to your economies of scale, which, when you can move your team from one project to another, you are keeping them on, and it's more efficient as well, especially if you can do 2 or 3 at the same time. You can just buy more in bulk and you get better pricing, which then also helps to reduce your expenses, which gives you better profit.
Well, and having the team that you're paying versus paying retail contractors is a huge difference. But you can actually make still a good amount of money, even if some or sometimes all of your contractors are retail, where you're paying full retail value. But of course, so you can get started without having your own team if you've got the right project, and then gradually build your team as you go.
Absolutely. And including even to the point where even if you have to hire a GC, which is a general contractor who manages the team, you can still make money. Because I actually did that for my last project. I usually manage all of my projects, but I decided to try a GC just to see. You do make less money, but you gain your time back. So, you know, you have to look at that. But you're right. If you're buying correctly and doing the right renovations, you absolutely can make money by not doing the work.
And that's a really good point, because if you have that general contractor, or you're, like in our case, we have a trusted handyman that has worked for our company for several years, and he could oversee a project like that. In fact, he's out overseeing renovations on a Cineplex right now because his wife works for Cineplex. But anyway,
cool.
so you can buy flips or BRRRRs in other cities if you've got that team in place who can you know go and take care of that for you. Okay, let's go on here.
And I have done renovations in, well, as you know, I've done renovations in other towns other than my own as well.
Yes, so. I know that. There was one right around the corner from me.
Oh, was it?
All right. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so go ahead, Shelley.
A mortgage qualification is not always necessary. Actually, it's not recommended to get a mortgage, to be honest. Banks don't like it, and you will see rookie or inexperienced investors coming in who go, oh, I have to go get a mortgage, and I'm going to just do that and then flip it and I'll get another one. Well, the banks will quickly catch on, and usually you can get away with it twice, and now all of a sudden they put a complete halt to it, and then you don't qualify for any financing, and then you end up having troubles getting financing at good rates with the A lenders until you use them up. So we actually don't recommend qualifying for a mortgage at all. There's private lending is your option. There's companies that also, and I've used companies as well that specialize in it. I've also used private funds just through regular people. And also you can get the homeowner on board, because you are providing a fantastic service to them that is going to help them be able to sell their property in a way that's going to be a lot more peaceful for them. So it's a huge benefit.
Yeah, we have another slide coming up here with a couple more points on that. I just wanted to mention there, because I agree with you, the whole don't get a mortgage unless you manage to get an open mortgage where the bank knows in advance that, okay, here's my plan. I'm going to buy this on an open mortgage, do major renovations, and then get a reappraisal, and then lock into a fixed term mortgage. So if the bank knows in advance that's what you're doing, there are some banks that will do that. TD was one of them, but this was a few years ago that I looked into this, so I'm not sure. But TD was one of them that would do the open mortgage, and then you could refinance or finalize your financing at the higher appraisal.
Right. Yeah. And that works on the BRRRR strategy, not on the flip strategy. Let's be clear on that.
Good point.
Sure.
Good point.
Yes. And usually on the 6 months. So the only thing with the 6 month is, again, you need to show your project, because you actually need a year, because you need to see where is that project coming out. Because if it's renovations are coming out, say in December, well, market values are lower. So you might actually want to push through to the spring, so pay that higher mark. So again, those are just a little bit more advanced strategies of understanding how your BRRRR or flip strategy works. But yes, you can definitely do a 6 month open on a BRRRR strategy, or a 1 year open, or just do a variable rate. 3 month interest penalty, and then refinance.
Really?
I know, sorry. You can delete that if you want. And my mortgage brokers, listen, my mortgage brokers have told me to do that too. So yeah, if you're a mortgage broker, you know I'm saying your words.
and that's the thing. I mean, as with any business, but real estate is what we always say is full disclosure. Like, make sure that your bank knows what you're doing, instead of like the whole apologize later instead of ask permission doesn't really fly with banks.
No. Yeah. Then that's why I highly recommend actually working with a mortgage broker, because you can be upfront with them, tell them everything. And then they'll know which bank or lender to go with, or what you can do, or how to put the story together. But a bank, you can't tell the whole story, and then you have to draw that line of, am I creating fraud, which you never want to cross that line.
No. No,
So
you don't even want to go
don't-
into gray
no,
areas.
No, not at all. So I deal with mortgage brokers, and just to be clear, mortgage broker, not all banks deal with a mortgage broker. Like I know the RBC
Yeah.
does not, but if you're doing these fix and flips and BRRRRs, deal with a mortgage broker for the alternative financing.
Excellent.
No tenant hassles. Absolutely. You know, you can just get in there, and if you're organized with your timing and get multiple trades in, tenants, you're not dealing with, you know, toilet calls in the middle of the night by any means, or, you know, the little picture of what's normal wear and tear. High demand for, yeah, everybody loves a fresh renovated home.
Oh yeah.
You know, that's really what's going, everyone wants fresh and new. They, you know, one of my rental ads, after I'd renovated one of my BRRRRs, my rental ad actually said at the top for the headline, the catch was poop where no one's pooped before, because it was a new toilet. I had a huge response to that one. So yes, people love new homes. So
oh yeah.
So
yes.
Yeah. And if you are talented, you get to have fun with how the designs and layouts are. And if you are not, because I've seen a lot of bad ones,
oh yeah,
please know if you're good at it or not. Because if you're not, find somebody and hire that as part of your team, a decorator, designer, or an architect, somebody who can do that for you, because you'll actually get way more bang for your buck.
No kidding. Yeah. And I'm sure you know somebody in Calgary, Alberta. I definitely know somebody in Edmonton, Alberta. So if anyone's in either of those centers, then feel free to ask us. We'll give you the name of somebody absolutely stellar. Okay. And now BRRRR specifically, as you mentioned, you pull out your capital when you refinance, and more about why we like renovated homes. Oops, there we go.
Yeah. So I want to remove a bit of a fallacy here that's out there when it comes to BRRRR and removing your capital. People will hear quite often that, oh my gosh, do the renovation, you get all your money back. Rarely, especially in Canada and particularly in Alberta, are you going to get all of your capital back. So, and capital meaning all of the money you put up for the renovation, your holding costs, your initial down payment, because usually you still have to put down 20-25% down. So very rarely will you actually get all of it back. You should plan that you're going to leave anywhere from 5 to 10% in. If it does work out that you get more of it back, fantastic, it's a win. But don't go into the assumption that every single BRRRR you're going to do, you're going to get all of your capital back, because that's not true.
That's an excellent point. And one of the flips that we did, we actually sat down to think, okay, you know, instead of doing this as a flip, we could actually refinance this, pull out most of our capital, because we were paying retail at this time. So definitely not all of our capital would come out, but we'd be able to pull out most of our capital because we bought it with seller finance and we hadn't put any down payment. So that was awesome. But then what we could also do, if we decided, hey, let's rent it, or even do a rent to own on this flip, is refinance it instead and then get a joint venture partner. The joint venture partner is going to get a deal because they don't need to put in 20 or 25%. So they're going to get a higher return on investment by combining, you know, the BRRRR strategy with a joint venture. But we're getting a little bit advanced here, so we better rein it in.
Totally. I know, because you and I could go way off the deep end, which we have before. But so I just want to make sure people realize that with the BRRRRs, make sure you do account for that little bit of money that's left in there. But it's still good because you're still into a house for only 5 or 10%. So that's still fantastic, right? And little thing too is if you're using private money, you're able to pay out your investors, and now they want to reinvest with you again. And that's what you want, is to keep creating that back and forth, because your investors go, oh my God, I got some money. Let me give it back to you. Oh my God, I get some more money. Let me give it back to you. So that's what you want to do. So it's kind of good for that. Renovated homes definitely attract higher quality tenants. You earn higher rents and improve the neighborhood 100%. And don't feel that needs to be high-end finishes. Just the fact that you have maybe new lights, new paint, new flooring, a new countertop and backsplash, like it's just the basics. But as long as your colors look really good, it will go off really well. And honestly, that is the biggest tip I can give you for saving money, is people often think that they have to spend high end, and really it's just getting your colors together that make it look like you've spent a lot of money.
And you know, if you paint that old 50-year-old stucco, if you get it properly spray painted, it looks amazing. You don't have to spend thousands of dollars residing a house, but please, people, do the garage too. Please paint the garage.
Yes.
Please
oh my God,
make them match.
And the shed in the back. And Yes, my last flip I did, they had a shed in the back, and the painters came and we actually painted vinyl siding. And a lot of people don't realize you can actually paint vinyl siding. It's hugely a cost savings instead of replacing it all. And the siding was in good shape, and it just updated it. So, but they came and I took a look, and again, always do your follow up and check. And they hadn't done the shed, and I was like, "Why did you guys do the shed?" They're like, "Oh, we didn't think it was necessary. We were going to save you some money." I'm like, "It's not a savings at all," because people see it as piecemeal instead of a continuous and a continuity, and that the whole property looks new and fresh.
Well, and a big part of it is, as we were saying before, people love freshly renovated homes.
Yes.
And when they see anything that is work, that is going to detract away from the attractiveness of the property. We already mentioned before, as Shelley mentioned, about helping distressed sellers, getting them out of a bind. And and this is why they could have no equity left for realtors' commissions. A place that needs renovations. This one here in the picture, maybe a little bit of a tear down. Maybe. I don't know. Could have good bones. But
I'm thinking not actually.
But I mean, one of the flips we did, unfortunately, the lady's husband had died, and he was halfway through renovations, which that in itself is difficult because it's hard to bring in a contractor to do half-done renovations. But then when I saw the place, the renovations were not done to a high standard. They were a very low DIY standard. So that place would not have sold as it was, except to somebody like us. So then once we got in, ripped out all the poorly done renovations and redid them, it sold so fast.
Right. And it makes a huge difference, especially when somebody sees a do-it-yourself, for sure.
Oh,
but yeah, distressed sellers, or even a seller that unfortunately maybe doesn't like a realtor, or maybe they don't have a lot of spread in there to pay a realtor based on where their finances are. We can go in and help them. And I've actually had homeowners where we've done a deal where they've stayed on the financing, on the mortgage. We put a value onto the property. I can come in and do the work, and now I can pay them a bit more than what they would have received. So that creates a huge win for them. And then they also don't have people coming and going and trying to arrange through showings. And is the house going to sell? I can't afford to keep paying for the next 3 months. So absolutely, it really is an opportunity for that home seller to get them out of the challenge that they're in.
Well, and exactly, and you can walk in and create a win-win where they're getting a better deal than if they were selling through a realtor. We close whenever they want to, and so they don't have all the carrying costs and, as you say, all the disturbance, and they've escaped this burden and probably made a little bit more money than they would have otherwise. So it's fantastic.
Yeah. Absolutely. And understand, you guys are taking over the mortgage payments, the insurance, the utilities.
Of course.
Those are your costs. They're out, and those are your costs for running that project. But it's still, and it's a huge savings for me, not looking for financing or paying that higher interest rate too. So
even an application fee for bridge financing is thousands of dollars. So you'd save that right there, and you just pass along that savings. All right, I see that there were a couple questions in the chat box. Anne asks, in my area, contractors are booked until next April. So would you see this as more something to build up over time these days?
So yeah, great question, Anne. And I know that that's a huge problem out where you are. She's out in the Montreal, Quebec area. So Quebec and Ontario have huge issues with contractors. And to be honest, we also have that problem with our development in Cranbrook, where it is such a boom right now. It's hard to find contractors. So, there's nothing that says you have to stay in your area, first off. Secondly, there's always somebody out there who might get between jobs, build up relationships with people. Maybe you have to import, because that's what we were looking at too, is was it cheaper to import and put up housing for some of our contractors than to pay the local fees because they had jacked their rates up? And because we were going to wait 3 or 4 months, those holding costs would have added up far too much. So there's different options there, and maybe it is too difficult to get a quality contractor in the area. So take a look maybe in a different area. So
thinking about hiring a designer, do designers for BRRRRs exist? Meaning, as you say, someone who can design for your tenant demographic.
Absolutely, because when you work with a designer, you're working within a price range, and you want to find somebody who is real estate investor focused more so than somebody who's a commercial designer or a high-end condo designer. So just like any field, there there is somebody who is specialized. So it's best if you can find a real estate investor focused designer that will do you the best, but you will talk to them a bit about your budget, what you're looking for, saying, you know, here's our tenants, here's the tenant rent profile that we're looking at. And they should know based on the area as well. Any good designer will absolutely know if you're in a high-end executive market or a first-time home owners market. And there's a big difference in that quality of products, and they'll be able to work with you. And whether it's a BRRRR or a flip, you're going to explain that you're going to need, with a BRRRR, products that are a little bit more durable for a tenant compared to just flipping it out. Let's see, Aileen from Edmonton. I don't think I know you. Aileen, can you give some tips for a beginner and how to find a deal? Well, finding a deal is, you know, working with wholesalers, working with realtors, different real estate groups, putting the word out, doing what they call driving for dollars, drive neighborhoods and see if you can find a house that's looking in a little bit of disrepair. You can sometimes work with different lawyers who know people that are going through bankruptcy. Some of that is a little bit different in Canada with Privacy Act, but yeah, that's just, you know, a high level way to find some deals. So it really is relationship building. If you're a brand new person, Aileen, and you have somebody who is an investor who's done a lot of work, you know, when a realtor is going, hey, I have this opportunity, am I going to give it to the new person if I know that they can't close, or to somebody who can close? They're most likely going to give it to the experienced person. So you have to build that relationship and show that you can close the deal. And maybe you have to work with an experienced investor for a bit to make sure that you get those tips and skills and that knowledge and build those relationships.
Do we have one more question on the good stuff before we move to the bad?
Let me just see. Amber's just your greatest challenge when beginning to do a BRRRR. Let's leave that one. How did you overcome this obstacle? That can go into the bad and all that. So Amber, I'll get to that one afterwards because it'll kind of go with it, or you might hear the story depending on what we talk about.
Excellent. All right. So the bad of fix and flips and BRRRRs.
Yeah. Can't go over budget if you never make a budget. That's a huge one. Somebody will say, yeah, well, I'll just figure it out as I go. It's like, no, you can't. You need to know. And a big thing is you need to know how much items cost. So if you've never done a renovation or a flip, that would be probably your first homework assignment, is go find out what things cost. How much does it cost per square footage for tiles, for laminate flooring? How much does an installer cost? How much does a toilet and a tub cost? You know, like those are the things you kind of want to have an idea of, so that you can calculate on a high level when you go into a property. Because I can go into a property, quickly see, and I know instantly how much it's going to cost me for a renovation to a degree. So super important. And I'm sure you can do that too. You know, we know that always takes longer than you plan. Absolutely. You know, they say when you're doing a renovation, always have an additional 5 or 10%. I would say also plan that in your time. Your time is part of your budget as well, because that also affects how much the monetary cost is. Because if I have to hold for an additional month or two, that's an extra mortgage payment, insurance payment, utilities. Maybe now the market has also dropped. So now I've lost maybe $10,000 in a sale price. So definitely holding costs can,
or
the time length can be bad.
Yeah, and holding costs can easily be $2,000 a month or more, depending on what type of financing you have. So, and how expensive of a property it is to begin with. But yeah, if you don't budget for the cost of that extra time, you could really be setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah, absolutely. So cost of time, not just cost of materials as well. So absolutely. And always takes more money than you budgeted. Increased expenses equals lower profits. That makes sense. Yeah, it absolutely, especially when you're new, it's going to cost you more because you also don't have those relationships built for possibly discounts or volume, or with, you know, with building with a handyman, you know, you're working out, hey, do you know how to save me money? Like, what's a creative solution to this problem that we have? How can we solve that problem in a creative way? Because you're both getting to know each other. So absolutely, it always takes more than you know. And even when we go through houses, and even if I have an appraisal done, there is always something you don't know that's going to come up, that's going to cost you. You just don't know what it is. And even on my last flip, I always sit there and go, oh, I wonder what the surprise is going to be. Because I know there's going to be a surprise. I just don't know what. So when my contractor calls me and he's like, okay, we got to talk, I'm like, is this the surprise? Because I just want to know. And most times it's not, but it's, you just don't know. Like we've had so many odd, weird things, and you just have to budget it and be okay with it. And if you go in with that mindset, there's going to be something, then you're not going to be so shaken when something comes up. Now you can go, whew, cross that off the list. It's done.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And yeah, that's where the big wiggle room in your budget comes. And just going back, I just remembered something from one of our flips, and that it always takes you longer than planned. Here's something to be really clear on with your team: to not choose things that are special order. So our contractor, and he was acting as the general contractor for the project, and he showed me these countertops, or not countertops, whichever it was, countertops or cabinets, I can't even remember. And he said, oh yeah, here's what we're doing, here's what the cost will be. And I said, yeah, that sounds fine. He did not ever tell me they were special order.
Oh my gosh.
And so
no.
6 weeks later, we're still
Yeah.
waiting. Like, the project should have been done in 6 weeks. And 6 weeks later, we're still waiting for these countertops. It's just, oh, dude, what are you trying to do to me here? So be very clear with your team that you know, if maybe sometimes there is something you really need, like a certain size of vanity or certain size of shower stall or something like that. But be very clear with your team that you need to know timelines, estimated timelines up front.
And especially right now, because of materials and transportation issues and all, like, it's huge right now. Getting windows is now almost 6 months, like 4 to 6 months, depending on the windows you need or how many you need. Same with like asphalt that they use for making the shingles for the roof is back.
Anything from China.
Oh,
just don't.
But even siding is all bad. And now, because there was very few products for siding, people were going to hardy board. Well, now they've got limitations on the hardy board product. So you're right. So when you're looking at your material, the more time you have before you take possession and be organized, and again, this becomes down to your processes, that you can have everything measured and have it pre-ordered so that your 6 weeks later is okay. It comes in on time. That's okay. But, or have a backup plan. If things don't come in, you have to have backup plans over backup plans over backup plans. And that's why having that experienced contractor is so important, because they'll have access to other product or materials or have other ideas, because they'll have run into similar issues in the past.
For sure. All right, more bad stuff. We've alluded to this a bit, but here are a couple examples of the major unforeseen expenses and repairs.
Yeah, foundation would be the biggest one, absolutely. And that's where you want to bring in an expert who can tell you whether it's still purchasing, whether you need to take a rebate back on what you agreed to based on the cost, can it be repaired or not. And you know, you tend to walk away from more projects than you actually take on. Foundation issues, yeah, that's a big one. And more, the problem is foundation issues that you can't see, because say it's a developed basement, so you can't see it. That's a bigger issue. And that's where you want to really make sure, if you don't have a good sniffer, you bring somebody in who can smell mold and mildew and funky little smells, because that's so important to know right off the bat if there's a foundation leak issue, besides the cameras that they go through with. That's a big one.
Well, and not only has it been fixed if there was an issue, but who fixed it, and was it done properly?
Yes.
Because we went through one where, yes, oh, the crack was completely sealed. Turns out they sealed it with Kills stain sealing paint, not with epoxy resin that's meant for. So then when the floods came, the next spring, it was like,
oh my gosh,
it was,
yeah, and then it would just make the crack bigger. So, and the other thing is finding out why there's a leak there, because maybe it's actually not the foundation. Because I had a property where the basement just kept flooding from the bottom, and we couldn't figure out, and I knew the foundation wasn't cracked. And so what we actually realized was the neighbor's trees, who I had asked them to cut their trees from overhanging, had filled the gutters. The gutters overflowed, but we had big cedar trees that had dropped all these needles. So the water couldn't absorb into the ground, and then just went right down and raised the water table level. So then it was just bubbling up under the slab. Yeah. So once we got the gutters clean and the neighbor cut his tree, it was fine. But you don't know, you think, oh my gosh, this is a major foundation issue, right? And turns out like some of those big expenses that you think are really not that big. And sometimes those small things are way bigger than you imagine too. So yeah. Appliances, furnace, hot water tank. Honestly, guys, that stuff they can be high expense depending, but it's not as bad as it used to be. Like furnaces are about $4,000 now, give or take, not the $8,000 they used to be. A hot water tank you can get for anywhere from $900 to $1,300.
Specifically, though, I'm referring to them all failing at once.
Oh,
Oh yeah,
like on Christmas Eve with my tenant, we had
like
that.
a whole house
Yeah.
full of appliances.
Oh my gosh. Did you have a electrical charge?
No, it was just a coincidence. I called 2020 the year of the appliance, so
Oh, because my
yeah.
a girlfriend of mine had lightning hit their house and it fried all their appliances.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah. So
oh sorry.
no, go ahead.
And just to go on, hidden issues that you can't see in the winter, like the shingles needing to be done and grading and everything. And shingles, we used to have a guy we could get an average roof done for $4,000, but yeah, no, not anymore.
No.
But even at that time, similar quotes from other companies were $7,000. So I mean, if you need a house shingled, it's like $10,000 sometimes. So
yeah.
So it's good if you can see a bit, but in the winter in a snowy area, you're not going to be able to see the whole roof. They're just going to shovel off a spot and have one look.
Yeah, but you can tell somewhat based on the warm spots on the roof. You can tell by going into the attic and seeing the water stains or the moisture, how many vents there are. Absolutely. And that's where you need probably a really good appraiser. So if you're not familiar with it, that's okay. Totally. You just hire the right appraiser and inspector, or not appraiser, sorry, inspector, and then go with them. That's how you learn. They'll talk. And for $500, it's such a cheap education.
And a really good point with that. Some inspectors now come armed with a heat camera, thermal
camera. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. And so that shows the cold spots in the house if there's anything that might need addressing. So that's
and you can buy them. You can buy those as well, which is great to have as a landlord anyways for your own projects to walk through. And the other thing that I'm seeing a lot more of is, so they're using drones to go up and get an overview of the property, and then you can see a lot clearer of it. So that's another cool thing that they're doing.
All right. So more bad things, Shelley? You may have had some of these.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, issues with contractors and employees. Yeah, I seem to have this fantastic track record of getting contractors. We have worked out this great relationship. I pay them on time. I pay them fairly. I go above and beyond. I give them hundreds of thousands of dollars of work. And then they suddenly think they don't need me anymore and then bugger off. Yeah. That's happened to me a couple times.
It's
probably. Probably. So it's like, so, you know, it's like anything. And most contractors, it's funny to me because they can make such great money, but also in fairness, I have also seen where a lot of people rip off contractors. So I think it makes them go a little bit crazy in time too. But if you can get a good contractor, you know, they're gold. Hang on to them as long as you can, but don't stick with one. Always have 2 or 3, because if they think that you only have them, they now control your project instead of you. So you make sure you have a backup plan.
That's a really good point. And then 2 other points to go along with that is that sometimes they might take on another project because you've had maybe a little gap and now they're going to be busy. Another thing is staff changes. Because the one of the contractors that was our go-to contractor for years and years and years, suddenly the staff was, you know, there was a little issue here and they'd come back and fix it, a little issue here and they'd come back and fix it. So no big deal. But then one day they argued with me about fixing it, like, but you can see this big patch on the wall and there's mud splattered everywhere, like it's not done to a professional, and it's so things change. So even when you have that trusted contractor, I think that's a great idea to have 2.
Yes, always. Yeah. And you never know too when one might get hurt. I had one contractor, he was in a car accident, somebody rear-ended him, he was off work for months. Like it wasn't his fault, right? And I had another one who got sick. He ended up going in overnight for emergency, like kidney or liver cancer. And so he was off work for months as well, right? So it's not always that they become bad. I mean, it's just like us, life happens. So yeah, have that backup plan as well. The other issue with contractors can be that your communication has not been clear with your contracts of your expectations and how they receive it. So in your head, you might think that you've spoken very clearly. Have them repeat back how they've received it. So important, because how they receive it is how they're going to tell you back. And then you can capture those gaps or that miscommunication. And hopefully it's not that you'll catch them all, but let's minimize how much miscommunication is, because honestly, most contractors really do want to do a good job. It's their work that's going to be represented. So help them be proud of the work and make that relationship easy for them. You want them to come to work and be happy to work for you and take on another project.
For sure. And we've already touched on this, the finishes for the house.
Yeah.
Specifically, people need to be careful, I think, not to say put granite countertops into a townhouse in a B neighborhood sort of thing.
Yeah.
So match the area. Would you say so, Shelley?
Absolutely. I am seeing a lot more where landlords are doing some of that, the granite and stuff for long-term tenants because of, I guess, durability.
Mm-hmm.
So there can be options, but there's also different grades
of
granite. So if you're going to do that, then don't go high end at all. And same with finishes. For a B neighborhood, you're just going to go to Home Depot and get the basic finish. You're not going to order that high end $600 kitchen faucet that does all this fun stuff. You don't need that. No, you don't need just the little bar one either, but you can get decent ones for $50-$60 on sale. Stock up when you see sales.
Oh yeah, the end of year clearance at Lowe's, I got $400 faucets for $86.
Right.
And then you put them in, because we have a few pretty nice rentals, and you put them in and as a faucet replacement, and the tenants are just, oh my gosh, that's so lovely.
I know. Yeah.
But I think the bottom line is you don't want to do a $200,000 renovation on a $300,000 house. No. You're not going to get that money back.
And find a way, like, so for instance, if the baseboards are in great shape, just paint them, freshen them up. You don't necessarily have to replace them all, right? So again, it's making those tips. And again, that comes back to, what is your budget? Yeah. What is your budget? Stick to that budget.
Excellent. And no, we were talking before about the fact that one of the nice things about fix and flip and BRRRR is that you start out usually by not having to qualify for a mortgage, and when you're refinancing, you get the mortgage for a BRRRR. But that brings us to bridge financing and private lenders. So,
which can be very expensive, but again, the bad can be actually with this, where people look at those expenses and go, I'm not paying that $2,000 application fee and 8% interest on my project, and then they walk away. But they've walked away from $30,000 or $40,000 because of pride that they're not going to pay. And at the end of the day, are you making money? Great, go with it, right? But yes, you have to be aware that on some of that bridge financing or that private lending, you might have an application fee, which could be 1% to 2% of what you're applying for, or it could be a flat fee depending on the amount. It also depends on how much of a relationship you have with them, because one of my companies that we've used, which was Calvert, Calvert, they have an application fee, but how many times you've used them, they also reduce that down. Your first time you have a bit more, but we've used them a few times. And so, I don't always have to come up with all the stuff because they know I can do the job as well. Yeah. So, so your financing can be expensive. So that's where too, if you can find the homeowner who can maybe carry the financing for you, you're going to save some money. That's where you win on the buy. Check around on your different private lenders. Those rates vary. Those rates hugely vary. So do some research, and again, this comes back to relationships. When I have people who want to invest with me, they know that their money is secure. They know they're going to get their interest all the time. I don't pay the highest interest rate, but they also don't have the risk, and they know I'm making the money all the time. So don't worry that it's always has to be the highest that you pay. It's really about that trust factor and that relationship factor. So but financing for a flip is definitely higher. So is your insurance. It's definitely higher. So you have to just budget for that. So absolutely.
And what about appraisals?
Oh, okay. So appraisers. People, listen to me. Do your homework. Okay. I'm serious. I have a beef to pick with appraisers. Okay. So seriously, do your homework, get your realtor to pull all the comps. You go in, you better be there when that appraiser shows up, because you got to show him all your comps. You show him all the stuff you did, and then you tell him what you expect, or her, that appraisal to be. Because if you don't, they're just going to do the minimum, because the more they save the bank, the more business they get. But if you tell them that you know what's going on, you're more likely to get your amount. And I have said to appraisers, if you don't come up with this value, I need you to tell me and explain to me why not, based on all of this information. And now they know that you are an informed, experienced investor, and you're more likely to get your financing. So sorry, that's my little rant.
Oh no, I agree with
I
you.
had to learn that.
And not only that,
but
if you're doing anything that's a little bit special, like for instance,
Yes.
a suited house, or anything where a character home or something like that, where you're ripping it down to the sense, if there's anything a little out of the ordinary, you might not have any comparables in the local, in your immediate area,
Right.
in the last 6 months. So in that case, what you can do is pull comparables from other areas for that time period, and then like basically extrapolate and explain, do a little spreadsheet or
Yes.
email
Yes.
at least, some sort of report that justifies this property should be $500,000 because of this. And I know you can't take Edmonton's comparables for Leduc, but Edmonton suited houses did not decrease in value during this time. So why should Leduc suited houses? And that's a specific example that we did use, because our appraisal came back, I think it was $30,000 low for 3 properties. I didn't want to come up with an extra 100,000 out of my pocket. So we went back and pulled the other comparables, extrapolated, showed this little report to the bank's appraiser, and then we got it to work. So yes, absolutely. You don't just accept what they tell you automatically.
And the other thing is you have to tell them what happened behind the walls, because they don't know. So when we increased the R value of our attic insulation, they wouldn't have known that. They wouldn't have known that when I was pulling out the poly B, I just didn't do it at the connections. We did the entire house. So that has huge value. So you have to tell them the things you've done and explain. Don't just say, yeah, I replaced poly B. I replaced poly B in every single wall. There is nothing that is old there. And there's a big difference, right?
Aluminum wiring is another example.
Totally.
Because pigtailing it versus replacing it are 2 totally different things. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And for those of you that are in Ontario and Quebec, there's a lot of properties out there with knob and tube. And it's quite common for them to just go behind the walls and just replace the connections where they can see, but not all the way. And you still have a fire hazard. So there's a big difference between I replaced all of the knob and tube, so everything is new, to we replaced it at the connection junction, right? And the other thing is to realize on appraisals, you can get a second or third one. And if it's through a bank, they will always have a list. You just have to pay for it. But like Sherilyn said, if you suddenly have $30,000 more, that was well worth your $500 for another appraisal. And don't be afraid to ask them. And find out on their appraisal list who's who. Ask people who have they used, because some are always known for going cheaper and some are known for going higher. So it all depends what you want it for.
And just a little caveat with that, if last time I heard anyway, if you are going through an insured mortgage, which if you are somehow able to do a flip with an insured mortgage, we did a couple.
Come talk to me, I want to know.
Yeah, we did a couple because we actually lived in one suite while we renovated the other. That's how we got started in real estate. So we did have insured mortgages. And if you're doing insured mortgages, they have to take the first appraisal. But I don't. Yeah, so if you were able to buy with some sort of bridge financing or seller financing, and then do the renovation, and then get your you're living in one suite and renting out the other, great. But CMHC first appraisal, they won't take another one.
So that's where it's really important then to know who the appraisals are on the bank's qualified appraisal list, and find out who, because you can actually on that list, you can say, I would like this person. Now, just so you guys know too, for the most part, you can kind of ask, but sometimes you can't, because it just kind of goes out to this lottery and it's whoever's available at that time too. So it has changed a little bit from years ago when Sherilyn and I were just little wee young ones. So, but you can still work within the system somehow, right?
Excellent. Now we do have some questions here. Oh my God, I have so many questions. You know what? We are so far over time already. I think what we're going to do is we're going to finish the bad, which is a short section, and then we're going to go back for questions. Okay. And even if we have to, email everybody after, we might just do that. But yeah, we'll stick around for questions after.
It's not because I talk too much, is it?
No, I think it's largely due to my tech unsavviness today. I don't know what's wrong with my brain. Okay.
I'll take some of it. I talk too much.
Well, and get the 2 of us together. Come on.
Yes, exactly.
All right. It's the Sherilyn and Shelly show. Okay, the ugly.
The ugly. Let's go with the ugly. Oh, yeah, right. Market crash. You don't know the market. So you bought at the high because, oh my gosh, it's booming. Everybody's just buying it and selling it 2 weeks later. Well, yeah, but you couldn't take possession for 6 weeks. And actually that was the top and now it's going down.
Or your renovation took way too long.
Yes. Yes, that too. Absolutely. So it's super important to know, excuse me, where you are in the real estate cycle for your area that you're doing your flips in. BRRRR's not as important, except that you need to be aware of that because of your appraisal that we were talking about. So where's that appraisal going to come in? So that can affect you a bit more. Not a complete write-off, just have that in, because don't forget you're going to have mortgage pay down, and maybe you have to hold on to that financing for a little bit longer till it comes to a better season. So maybe waiting a few months is actually beneficial to you. Again, run the numbers. But yeah, so really important to know where you're in that real estate cycle for your area. And remember, some parts of the country are in a boom and some are in a bust. So it's all very different as well. Maybe it's seasonal, so watch for that. And maybe it's a change in the neighborhood. So maybe an area that used to be okay is now actually declining, or maybe an area is upcoming a bit more because a new project has been announced that's either good or bad for the area. And good or bad can mean maybe infrastructure and development is great for the area, or maybe a lot of people have that NIMBY, not in my backyard. It's the new drug rehab house that nobody wants. So it can be either. So be aware of what's going on in the area that you're buying in. Overpaid and over leveraged, absolutely. Again, that comes down to where's the economy going with your houses. And I see this actually also with people who get emotionally attached to the house. Oh my gosh, I got to do my first flip. No, you don't. Or, oh my God, I love this house. It just speaks to me. Okay, it's speaking to you, all right. Tone it down. You're not paying that much. Like, know your numbers and don't get caught into bidding wars, because that's exactly where you overpay. I always know exactly what I'm willing to pay. And when bidding wars are going and people are suddenly paying 10, 15, 20, $30,000 more, maybe that's my profit. I can't do that. There's no way. So I'm good. And if I don't get it, I'm good. I'm good. I'm glad about that, because then it's like, okay, it wasn't meant to be. What do I need to improve my processes or go on to the next one? Maybe that person is a self-contractor who's not paying all those extra fees and they can afford to do that. You know, you don't know. But that's also where people get caught up and now they overpay and over leverage on a property too.
Excellent points. What I've always said, and it's just so true, is there is literally another house around the corner.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yes, don't get set on this one house. If the numbers don't work, it's not the right house.
Absolutely. And celebrate, because it's a win. There's a reason. What did you learn? And maybe you didn't win because your negotiation skills were not as good or your numbers weren't as good. So now that's a huge win. Now you know what you need to go learn and fix and improve on. So it's win or learn all the time. Win and learn.
Oh, here's a secret to winning a bidding war: take toddlers with you. Works. No, seriously, one of the properties we bought, and so this place needed a total renovation. It was an up down, needed a total renovation, and this was more of a BRRRR. And I took my toddler and my preschooler with me to the showing. Didn't know that the homeowner was sitting in his car watching all the people go through this open house. And my realtor told me that there were other offers higher than mine, but they picked us because they liked, the thought of a family living there.
Aw, that's awesome. I can't. I'm allergic to children, so I won't have any.
Mine are too old and annoying now.
That's so funny. Oh, that's funny.
Okay. More ugliness.
Yeah. So can't sell and it's very expensive to hold. Before you've ever bought that property, you need to make sure that you have multiple backup plans and strategies in place before you take it. So if you can't flip it, can you BRRRR it and make money? Can you just rent it out? Can you do a rent to own? Can you, whatever you have to do, right? Can you sell it to another investor? Can you raise extra funds to buy it out for a year while you continue to pay the mortgage down and get private financing for the short term? Because with mortgage pay down, you'll be able to pay it back. Like, you need to have it. And if you only have one strategy in order to make money, do not buy it. Please make sure it makes money at least 3 strategies, because of that. You never know when something is going to happen. You just, remember, like March, a year and a half ago, people were buying and thinking, oh, great, just in time for the spring market, until COVID hit and shut everything down. Who would have ever thought that could have happened, right? You don't, and I know that sounds extreme, but there's always something. There's always something of some extreme. I think back in Quebec when they had the big train explosion, nobody expected that. Like, we don't know what's coming. So make sure you please have 3 backup strategies on how you're going to protect your investment and protect your investors' investment.
Excellent. And the bankruptcy point, that's actually one I put in there because I know of somebody who did all of these ugly things and over leveraged, bought in a boom, expensive bridge financing. They took on too many projects at once. The renovations were taking too long because they were trying to do 3 projects with one team. The market crash hit and it all went to heck in a handbasket. And this person did have to declare bankruptcy, lost them all. So the whole ugly thing with Shelley's points are fantastic with the multiple exit strategies, the multiple backup plans, and the huge preparation and budgeting, because the ugly is super ugly if you don't plan this properly.
Yeah.
Any points to add there?
No, I think you've hit it. And at the end of the day, none of us are going in this to have to create stress and headaches. And I'm not even going to lie to you. There are easier ways to do real estate than renovations. Let's be honest, there really is. So I'm just a sucker for punishment. But there's a lot of factors that are out of your control. So you have to have as many things in your control, in your processes, to minimize that. And if you don't have it and are not quite there yet, then find somebody that you can align with to help you, and make sure you get that information and knowledge. Or you have to be prepared to call it, that's your university degree. That's the cost you've paid to learn, because you will learn through it. But bankruptcy is not good. And that's not fair. That's not fair to the banks and to society, to the neighborhood, to your investors, that you didn't do your backup plans and prevent that, unless it's been I've seen a situation where it was unfortunate for a family. It was one of the homeowners I was trying to do a AFS with for doing a flip. Her son got cancer and she had to quit her job to watch him, and the father walked out and no support. She ended up in bankruptcy. I mean, there are always those stories, but let's be honest, 9 out of 10 are because we didn't put in the proper diligence. So make sure you please do your diligence, because you don't want that bankruptcy either. That's not fun for you at all either. I'm not trying to be mean, but let's be realistic in this game, right? So
yeah, and in a sense, if you do run into a lot of these problems, you got to own it that you are responsible for a lot of the lack of preparation. One thing just to hit on that you mentioned, align yourself with somebody who already has the experience, knows what they're doing. That is a great idea, but I just want to say proceed with caution, because we aligned, my fault here, I aligned myself with a renovation expert and partnered on a property that was going to be a BRRRR. And then we had a couple of issues, and one of them, for example, I was going to put a picture in and I forgot. One of them was on the list, and it was right in the contract that the joint venture contract, that here's what they had to do to be a part of this deal. One of them was upgrading the insulation, and then we had a leak in the ceiling, so we had cause to go up into the attic and check it out. It looked like they had taken a bag of fiberglass paint and just shuffled it, like, or dealt it like cards. And they were,
that's not how you do it. You don't just take a fan and blow it.
There was one sitting up like this against the rafters, and there were a couple that were on end. So they didn't improve anything in this house. We ended up having to sit down and say, okay, this X amount of money that you supposedly put into the property is completely worthless. It all has to be redone. So your choices here are we hire a new contractor, redo all the work, and you pay. How did we do that? Anyway, but they could either walk away or they could share in the cost of redoing it. That's what it was. So they would have to share in the cost of another contractor redoing all the work, or they could just walk away from the time and supposed money that they had invested. So just when you're aligning yourself with somebody who knows what they're doing, be really, really careful, because a lot of people think they know what they're doing and they're just not Shelley.
Thank goodness. My life, you don't want to be inside here. But also, on that point, if you are aligning yourself with somebody you don't know anything, make sure you're not being a hindrance, but you are being a help.
Yes.
Right. And know that, as like, I had somebody who wanted to learn under me, and they're like, okay, well, I can only come on these days. And I'm like, yeah, sorry. You can show up on those days, but we'll already be well ahead. Like, well, I'm not waiting on you. We have a project to deal with. I have responsibilities and stuff. So make sure you are being a help and not a hindrance. And if you do have limited times, that's okay. On those days that you come, you just gather what you can on those days as well.
Perfect.
So,
we'll get to questions in a second. I just want to finish off here first, and then we'll go back. So the bright side, buying right, Shelley already talked about it a bit. So yeah, it dramatically increases your chance of success if you buy right. And if you buy wrong, meaning you overpaid, too expensive of financing, wrong area, all of that stuff, then you're setting yourself up for failure for sure. And if you have those trusted contractors, as Shelley mentioned, ideally have two, you're going to end up with better results and less stress. And like you said, Shelley, we all want to avoid the stress. And this, also what you said, nobody, this is not the easiest thing to do in real estate, but it is a way to create capital for other projects. And that's why we do things like the flips and rent to own and all of that, because it brings in a large amount of capital in a very relatively short amount of time, depending if it's rent to own or flip. For real estate terms, it's a short amount of time. And then you can invest it in the long-term projects that are the key to long-term sustainable wealth. And that's why we're in real estate.
And be aware that flipping and that quick cash is under the government and under the taxation is income, and as well capital gains. So remember to budget for that as well in your costs, because that is part of your costs, right? But you also have all those deductions as well. And so that's where you need to talk to your accountant. Are you creating a corporation? If you're doing a lot of active income, you may want a corporation. There's extra costs with it, but you have to look at the whole big picture. Don't get stuck with blinders on just one or two costs. So yeah, absolutely. And then that money can be used to create wealth, or to be able to, now I like to just pay cash for houses, do the renovation, so that I'm not paying out as much on financing costs.
How to connect with Shelley. So her email is shelley@frontdoorinvestments.ca. And especially if you're asking about the whole private money thing that she was talking about, because she does do some private lending and she knows so much about it if you have questions. And her Real Power group, so that's real-power.ca. And again, for those of the people who missed it at the beginning, can you tell us about that again, Shelley, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Real Power Group stands for Real Estate's Awesome Ladies. It's a group, a community of women involved in real estate. So it's for women by women, to encourage, uplift women, and to educate women. So we have conferences and masterminds that you can be part of. We also have, though, our Palm Springs getaway end of January that is open to guys as well. So it's guys, gals, and guests, and it's all about investing in the US. So US investing, if you have any interest in that at all, we have a fantastic lineup, including a bus tour, and mortgage brokers, tax advisors, realtors, all of that is set up so that you can invest. And why did we pick Palm Springs? So, I mean, who doesn't want to go to Palm Springs in January, end of January anyways, right? So maybe have a golf day and a spa day. So yeah, go take a look at our website. Generally speaking, it is for women only. Oh, thanks, Jamie. We love having you guys. We have an incredible group of women that are just spectacular. And it's showcasing to women that there are such incredible women in real estate doing big things. And we also want to help those other women that aren't quite there learning to level up. And it's about those connections as well. So yeah, really honored to be part of that group.
Perfect. That sounds really interesting. I wish I could go, but I don't see that in the cards. So what's next? So we're going to answer questions in a second. I just want to make sure that everyone knows that because we've been talking about it, seller financing and how it can fit into flips and BRRRRs, I decided I should probably do seller financing for the next Good, Bad, and Ugly. And I don't know, maybe Shelley and I might join each other. It's always fun with more than just me up here, because you can't joke around by yourself. You don't have that connection. So maybe I'll convince Shelley to come back and join me on the agreements for sale, seller financing, getting the deed, whatever you want to call it in your area. And that is a fantastic strategy to get a property with little to no money down and no mortgage qualification. You get the seller to hold the financing. You just take over all the costs and all the responsibilities, and you get control of that property. You can do your renovations and then finance it or sell it or whatever the heck you want to do with it. So we'll be doing that in January. So again, sign up to the mailing list and you'll get the details on that. And now let's get back. So for anyone who needs to leave, thank you for coming. And otherwise, we're just going to go back to the questions that we missed.
I love it. Let's go back to Amber's, if that's okay, because I told her I'd make sure I'd get back to her. That good, bad, ugly. So what has been your greatest challenge when beginning to do BRRRRs? How did you overcome this obstacle? So Amber, I think the greatest challenge, like anybody, it depends on the situation. It depends on when. So at the very beginning, it would have been like how to even start and how to do it. But if your experience is how to find the deal, right? So it kind of depends on what the greatest challenge is. But I guess beginning to do BRRRRs, it would have just been, can you do it? How do I do it? So it's more of a confidence thing. I think for most people, it's not even about finding it. It's the confidence of how do I do it? And just getting that knowledge. So reading, being part of Facebook groups and podcasts, talking to other investors, it's getting that knowledge and then being willing to take that step and ask somebody if they don't mind, not necessarily mentoring you, but being a sounding board to you and letting them bounce ideas off of you and giving their feedback. So make sure you use a team of people.
One thing I would add to that is there are, I haven't read any of them, sorry, so I don't know which one to recommend, but there are a ton of books on BRRRR. And when I first started in rent to own, I took a course on rent to own, but it was very American and it was very, I want to say, predatory. So I didn't start with it right away. But then I read Mark Loeffler's book on rent to own investing in Canada. And then I saw a different perspective. I saw a big picture of how it can be a win-win. And that's what gave me the start of looking for what else I needed to learn. So that's one way you might want to start, is just find a couple of books on it first and see where you can go from there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Aileen, townhouse, single family home, which one is better for flip or BRRRR? What one is better? Depends. It really does. Depends on the community, the neighborhood, your money. Because I've done flips both in townhomes and single family homes, and BRRRRs with suited homes and single family homes and all of that. So it really just depends. And maybe you have a limited amount of money to start with. It just really depends on the neighborhood, the city, and the economics and where it is in the real estate cycle. They're all a win.
Absolutely.
And they're all a loss. I think it can also be a loss. Let's be honest.
Just one thing to be aware of is that when markets are recovering, and now this won't apply the same way to every market, but in Alberta specifically, when markets are recovering, single family homes recover way faster than townhomes, and condos are last. So for me, I tend to shy away from condos. Townhouses make great rental properties as long as you've got a good condo board. So for BRRRRs, I would say that a townhouse is just as good as a single family house, but for flips, it really, really depends.
Yeah. All right, perfect. Soap, water, and paint can go a long way. Oh, absolutely. You have a warehouse or something to store extra materials? That's a great question. I have used my garage. I know people that have rented. Also, if you have rental properties where you have a garage on site that's a separate building, instead of renting it out, you can store your own materials there. It just kind of depends on what's going on. It depends on how many you're doing, right? I like having projects though that have a garage, so I can just store all the materials in that garage instead of in the house. And the contractors like it too, because they don't have to keep moving things all around. Saves you money, time, and frustration. So I just locked my things off. Hang on. Oh my God. 100% to be transparent. If a bank appraiser will be involved, have you met beforehand to verify what they expect? No, that you meet with them on site and talk to them before they get started. So, okay, great group. Canmore was fun. Awesome, Jamie, thank you. Okay, I think that's it.
Yeah, Anne mentioned she had to leave, but she's really looking forward to knowing more about how to involve the homeowner in the flip. So there you go. Stay tuned. And Shelly, Anne's part of your group, Shelly?
She just joined, excuse me, the mastermind. So she'll be joining in her first meeting. Jamie's part of it, which is awesome. Amber is part of it. We have some incredible women all across Canada part of it. So you don't have to live in Calgary. It's online, and it's also in-person meetings, just depending how we break it up, but it's people from all across Canada right now.
Perfect.
So, yeah.
And for everyone in Shelley's group, she will make sure you know about that session. All right, and I think that's it. So again, thank you so much, everyone. And again, I'll be sending stuff out over the holidays, and watch for the agreement for sale seller financing to do in January. And until then, happy investing.
Oh, Joan's part of my group too. Yeah, thanks, Joan. And thank you, Sherilyn, for this opportunity. It was so awesome to just be able to chat again like we've always done in the past. Life gets too busy.
And it's such a pleasure to have you, because you're so entertaining. So
thanks, girl. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Bye, everyone.